France, late summer 1944. The war in the West has broken open faster than Allied plans predicted. The roads are crowded with dust, fuel trucks, half-tracks, and command cars moving east without pause. Maps change faster than they can be printed. Supply lines stretch thin behind advancing armies that no longer wait for permission to move. In one of those vehicles sits General George S. Patton, commander of the U.S. Third Army, wearing a helmet polished to a reflective shine. Not for protection, for visibility, for presence. Behind the wheel is a driver who understands machines the way Patton understands momentum. Born in 1918, raised around engines, trained in war. He can strip a Willys Jeep down to its engine block in under an hour, then have it running again before the column notices it ever stopped. This is not ceremony. This is movement. Patton does not like the half-track. He prefers the small car. It moves faster, it turns tighter, it lets him see, and it lets him be seen. He studies terrain in motion. He gives directions in fragments. Slow here, turn there, stop, go. Most of the time he does not explain why. The radio is often silent. When it is not, Patton turns it off. The noise interferes with thought. He already knows what the front looks like. He has been there. What the public sees later is posture. The standing general, the ivory-handled pistols, the sharp language. What happens here on these roads is calculation under speed. Every mile east tightens the race, not just against German forces retreating toward the Reich, but against time, politics, and allies moving on parallel axes. Berlin is not yet a destination spoken aloud, but it is already present, just beyond the horizon. The advance feels unstoppable. That feeling will not last. The margin, though no one says it yet, is already shrinking. Autumn settles unevenly across France and Belgium. Rain turns roads into ruts. Fuel becomes arithmetic. By September 1944, the U.S. Third Army is advancing faster than its logistics can mathematically support. Gasoline is rationed not by desire but by distance. Ammunition follows on trucks that arrive late or not at all. Patton knows this. He also knows stopping is worse. Each morning begins before dawn. If he says 4 o'clock, he is awake earlier. Sometimes he wakes the driver himself. No bugler, no ceremony, just motion before the world is ready. The headquarters vehicle carries maps, spare uniforms, and orders that may never be written down. Patton rarely sleeps in the sleeping bag prepared for him. He studies overlays instead. Rivers, road junctions, town names he pronounces once, then remembers forever. When meetings happen, they happen in borrowed buildings, schoolhouses, farmhouses, rooms that still smell like chalk or bread. Eisenhower appears in a Cadillac, Bradley nearby, Hodges present. The language is calm, the implications are not. Patton listens, then leaves quickly. He dislikes delay more than disagreement. At the front, soldiers recognize him instantly. The helmet does its job. The pistols are visible. The general steps out of the Jeep and sometimes joins the work, directing traffic, pulling vehicles from mud, watching engineers bridge streams under fire. The troops call him blood and guts. They also clap when he speaks. He does not talk about home, not his wife, not his children. Conversation stays locked on the war. Orders are short, corrections are rare. When mistakes happen, he adjusts course instead of explaining it. Anger surfaces, then disappears just as fast. Hell is the word that comes out most often. The front keeps moving east. German resistance bends but does not break cleanly. Beyond the next line on the map, something larger begins to form, a limit not set by enemy forces, a decision waiting elsewhere. By early 1945, The war's geography changes faster than its authority. Patton's Third Army crosses rivers that once defined German defenses. The Saar, the Moselle, lines that mattered for years collapse in days. The pace feels earned, almost inevitable. But above the front, decisions are being made far from the roads Patton travels. Boundaries are drawn on maps that do not move. Army group sectors are fixed. Objectives are assigned not by speed, but by agreement. The eastern axis belongs to someone else. Patton senses it before it is said. Momentum is being fenced. He continues forward anyway. Columns roll at first light. Towns fall without ceremony. Resistance is bypassed when it slows the advance. Patton prefers open roads to symbolic targets. Inside the Jeep, the radio crackles and goes silent again. When messages arrive, they come from Bradley. Orders phrased carefully. Hold here. Do not cross there. Wait. Patton does not argue on the air. He never liked explaining himself into a microphone. He stores the instructions, then studies the map again. Berlin remains unspoken, but no longer hypothetical. Everyone knows where the roads lead. Everyone knows which army is closest. The driver notices changes before words are used. The pauses get longer. Patton stares longer at junctions he does not take. When frustration breaks the surface, it is brief. This isn't going to work. Not shouted, calculated. At meetings, Montgomery's name comes up. So do politics. So do alliance lines that have nothing to do with terrain or casualties. Patton does not discuss this with his staff. He does not complain to subordinates. He continues to prepare as if movement will be allowed at any moment. Then the call comes. Not dramatic, not ceremonial, just information delivered through channels Patton did not control. Berlin will not be his. The reason is not tactical. It is final. The Jeep does not stop, but something in the advance does. For the first time since Normandy, speed no longer equals possibility. The message arrives without warning and without ceremony. It comes through Bradley's channel, routed cleanly, phrased carefully. The kind of order that does not invite clarification. The kind that exists because the decision has already been made somewhere else. Berlin is assigned east. The Soviet armies will take it. Patton hears the transmission inside the Jeep. The engine is still running. The road ahead is clear. Nothing in the physical world reflects what has just changed. He does not respond immediately. For a moment, he looks up from the map tray, not at the driver, not at the road, just forward, as if the horizon might contradict the words he has heard. Then his expression changes. Not anger first, recognition. This is not about capability. His army is closer than most will ever admit. His columns can move. His commanders are ready. The German defenses ahead are brittle. This is about permission. The driver sees it happen in real time. The shoulders drop slightly. The jaw tightens. The helmet stays on, shining, unchanged. But the man inside it absorbs the fact all at once. This is what he has been driving toward. This is what he has been denied. No outburst follows, no profanity, no argument over the radio. Patton does not shout, "Hell!" this time. He goes quiet. For the rest of the day, orders continue as usual. Units advance where allowed, vehicles are repositioned, maps are adjusted, but only within the boundaries already drawn. The war is still moving. Patton is still commanding. Yet the axis of possibility has closed. What he wanted most was not conquest for its own sake. It was completion. To finish the drive that began in North Africa, through Sicily, across France, and into the heart of the enemy. Instead, the road ends politically before it ends geographically. The driver later remembers something else. Moisture in Patton's eyes. Brief, unacknowledged. The jeep keeps moving. The destination no longer matters the same way. After the decision, the war continues as if nothing has changed. That is the illusion. Patton maintains the rhythm. Morning departures remain early, orders remain short, maps are still unfolded and refolded with care. To the men watching him, nothing appears broken. But the advance has lost its center. Third Army continues to fight, crossing into Germany, taking towns whose names will never be remembered outside unit journals. Resistance is crushed when it appears. When it does not, columns pass through without stopping. Patton remains visible. He steps out of the jeep at the front. He talks to soldiers directly, without speeches. When traffic snarls in mud, he helps direct it. Bradley jokes once that he would make a good police officer. Patton accepts the comment without reaction and keeps working. The radio stays off most of the time. When it is on, Patton listens only long enough to confirm boundaries. He does not want updates. He wants constraints. Those he must know. The driver notices the difference. Patton no longer scans ahead for routes that could be taken tomorrow. He studies what cannot be crossed today. Lines once treated as temporary now behave like walls. Frustration surfaces in fragments. A sharp word, a sudden stop, a command canceled as quickly as it is given. It isn't going to work. This time the phrase repeats. Patton does not speak about Berlin. He does not say the word aloud. He refers instead to directions, limits, and authority. Montgomery's name surfaces once, then disappears. Eisenhower's name is not used at all. There is no rebellion, no defiance, just compliance without surrender. Patton continues to command fiercely, but something essential has shifted. The war is no longer a race he can win. It is a process he must endure. For a man built entirely around forward motion, this is a different kind of punishment. The helmet stays polished, the pistols stay visible, but the drive no longer points toward a finish line he recognizes, and that absence begins to press inward. As spring approaches, the fighting thins unevenly. German units surrender in groups or disappear entirely. Towns raise white cloths before the first shot is fired. The Third Army keeps moving, but now along prescribed corridors that lead everywhere except where Patton once intended to go. He adapts outwardly. Inwardly, the pressure has nowhere to go. Patton remains meticulous about appearance. The helmet is still maintained, the pistols are still checked, the rituals stay intact, not as vanity, but as discipline. Control of the small things replaces control of direction. At headquarters, his vehicle becomes a moving office rather than a spearhead. Maps are updated with finality instead of anticipation. Arrows end at boundaries that do not shift. When soldiers approach him, he is unchanged. He listens, he nods, he encourages. If they have a better idea, he takes it seriously. Rank matters less than clarity. This is why they follow him, not because of volume, because of certainty. The driver continues to see what others do not. Patton spends longer stretches in silence. When he speaks to himself, it is not about Germany. It is about timing, about decisions made too late or by people too far away. Occasionally, anger flashes. When told something cannot be done, his instinct is immediate. Hell, I can! But the instinct has lost its target. There is no operational workaround for politics, no flank to turn, no road fast enough to outrun agreements already signed. Patton does not talk about this with anyone. He does not argue his case. He does not seek consolation. He simply keeps going until there is nowhere left to go. The war for him has become procedural. Victory is approaching, but without culmination. The thing he drove toward for years will happen without him present. This is not defeat. It is exclusion. And for a commander whose identity is motion, Exclusion cuts deeper than loss. The moment has not arrived yet, but it is now unavoidable. The decisive moment does not arrive with a speech. It arrives inside a moving jeep, with the engine idling and the radio turned on only long enough to deliver its message. The order is final. Berlin is not an objective for Third Army. Patton listens without interruption. He does not ask for clarification. He does not argue distance, speed, or readiness. He already understands all of that better than anyone transmitting the message. When the radio goes quiet, he speaks, not loudly, not theatrically. This isn't going to work. The words are not aimed at the driver. They are not meant for headquarters. They are an assessment, spoken once, without decoration. For a moment, he says nothing else. Then, when pressed indirectly by the logic of the situation, the frustration breaks through the discipline he has held since Africa. Hell, I can do it. The statement is not a plea. It is not a challenge. It is a declaration of capability, not authority. Patton is not disputing whether he could take Berlin. He is acknowledging that it no longer matters. There is no tirade, no profanity-laced outburst, no demand to be unleashed. The mythology would later invent those things. What happens instead is quieter. Patton removes his gaze from the map. He looks up and away as if checking a direction he already knows he cannot take. The driver sees moisture gather in his eyes. It is brief. Patton does not wipe it away. He does not comment on it. This is the only visible reaction. The decision has stripped meaning from speed, from initiative, from everything Patton has optimized himself to be. The war will end soon. Victory is certain, but the road he wanted ends here. The Jeep remains in gear. History has already turned without him. Nothing changes on the surface, and that is the cruelty of it. The Jeep keeps moving. Orders continue to flow. Columns advance where permitted. To anyone watching from a distance, Patton remains exactly what he has always been. But inside the command vehicle, the atmosphere has shifted permanently. Patton speaks less. When he does, his instructions are narrower, more technical. Routes, timings, distances. The language of execution, not ambition. The radio stays off almost entirely now. When it comes on, Patton listens only long enough to confirm that nothing has changed. It never does. The driver notices that Patton no longer scans the horizon the same way. Before, his eyes searched forward, measuring what could be done next. Now they drop back to the map tray, to boundaries that no longer move. At stops along the front, soldiers still cheer him. They still recognize the helmet, the pistols, the presence. Patton acknowledges them briefly, professionally. He does not linger. He does not speak about Berlin. He does not mention the Soviets. He does not explain anything. What had been a race has become a weight. The aftershock is not explosive. It is suppressive. Energy with nowhere to go compresses inward. The drive that once pulled everything forward now grinds against limits it cannot break. Patton continues to command aggressively inside the box he has been given. German units are destroyed or captured efficiently. Towns fall without delay. The work is done correctly, but without culmination. For a commander built around decisive endings, this is a distortion of purpose. Victory approaches, but it will arrive from a direction Patton did not choose, at a place he will never see. The war is still being won. Patton simply no longer recognizes where it ends. In May 1945, the war in Europe stops. The surrender is formal. The documents are signed. The fighting ends on schedule, not on impulse. Patton is not present where history will later focus its cameras. Third Army stands down in place. For Patton, there is no final dash, no climactic arrival. The end comes administratively, through channels, exactly the way Berlin was taken away from him. He does his duty. He follows procedure. He issues the required orders. The discipline never breaks. But the energy that once defined him has nowhere left to attach. The driver remains with him longer than required, clearing vehicles, packing maps, removing pins and overlays that once defined entire campaigns. The headquarters van is dismantled piece by piece. The physical artifacts of motion are packed away. Patton does not linger over them. When the question arises of what comes next, Patton does not hesitate. He is asked about Japan, about another theater, another war that could continue the rhythm he understands. He declines. Others are doing the job there, he says. He does not want to interfere. The words are neutral, but the meaning is clear. The war he lived for is over, and it did not end the way he drove toward. He returns instead to occupation duty, to speeches that do not move anything, to command without motion. The helmet is put away. The pistols are no longer needed. The qualities that made him indispensable in war are now inconvenient. Patton remains sharp. He remains restless. He remains unused. The victory he helped secure no longer requires what he offers. The silence that follows is not peace. It is displacement, and it will not sit quietly. The months after victory expose a different battlefield. Germany is no longer an enemy to be broken, but a space to be managed. Orders slow. Decisions stretch across committees. Movement is replaced by administration. Patton does not adapt easily. He commands the Third Army in name, but the army no longer moves. It occupies. It guards. It waits. For a man whose authority was forged through speed and decision, this is erosion by stillness. Patton speaks more openly now, but not more carefully. His language, once tolerated in combat because it produced results, sounds dangerous in peace. Remarks about former enemies, about priorities shifting too quickly, begin to circulate beyond his control. The same bluntness that once drove armies forward now creates friction upward. He is reprimanded, then sidelined. The reassignment is quiet, bureaucratic, precise. He has moved away from influence without spectacle. There is no confrontation, no final argument, just a gradual narrowing of relevance. Those close to him see the effect immediately. Patton becomes sharper, then flatter. The intensity remains, but without direction. He fills the hours with inspections, history, writing. He revisits campaigns already finished, correcting details no one has asked about. The driver, no longer required, fades back into civilian anonymity. The side stage view closes. The road that once never stopped moving ends without ceremony. Patton understands what has happened. The war that justified him is over. The world that follows does not know what to do with someone built entirely for motion, pressure, and decisive force. He does not protest publicly. He does not retreat inward completely either. He exists in a narrowing space between relevance and removal. The danger is no longer external. It is structural, and it is tightening. Patton turns inward to history. He writes. He revisits ancient campaigns, Caesar, Alexander, men who understood movement as destiny. He corrects their maps in his mind, testing decisions long settled by centuries. This is not nostalgia. It is rehearsal without a stage. Those around him notice the contradiction. He is still alert, still forceful, still thinking several moves ahead, but there is nothing left that requires it. The machinery of peace runs on caution, not momentum. Berlin never becomes a story he tells. It does not need to. Everyone who was close enough already understands what it meant. Not a city. A conclusion denied. The war's end has removed the one environment where Patton's flaws and strengths balanced each other. In combat, speed forgave excess. In peace, excess stands alone. His earlier moments are reinterpreted now. The helmet becomes caricature. The pistols become symbols stripped of context. The words that once pushed men forward are replayed without the pressure that gave them purpose. What remains is a figure out of alignment with his time. The driver's memory, quieter and more precise, preserves something else. Not the speeches, not the legend, but a man inside a jeep, staring past a map at a road he cannot take. The silence after Berlin lasts longer than the war itself. History remembers Patton as motion, as aggression, as noise. But those who watched closely remember the stillness that followed, and how badly it fit him. The tragedy is not that he was denied Berlin, it is that the war ended before he could stop moving. George S. Patton does not die in battle. He survives the war he was built for, only to be undone by a world that no longer needs what he offers. The irony is complete, and it is quiet. In December 1945, months after Germany's surrender, Patton is injured in a routine automobile accident in occupied Germany. The collision is minor by wartime standards. No enemy fire, no chaos, just a sudden stop. For a man who crossed continents under fire, the stillness is final. The road ends not at Berlin, not at the Rhine, not at the gates of a fallen Reich, but on an ordinary stretch of pavement in a war already over. History will argue about him endlessly. His temper, his language, his judgment, his contradictions. It will reduce him to symbols that are easier to handle than the man himself. But the decisive moment was never a speech or a scandal. It was the instant he understood that speed, courage, and competence were no longer enough. That permission mattered more than capability. That the road he had driven toward would be finished by others. He obeyed the order. He did not stop believing he could have done it. Both things are true. Patton was not broken by defeat. He was displaced by victory. The jeep kept moving that day when the call came. The war went on. History turned. And one of its most relentless drivers was left watching the horizon recede, knowing exactly how fast he could have reached it, and exactly why he never would. The road did not fail him. It simply ended.